everybody. If you still got your honey with you, enjoy them. If you don't, savor your memories. At any rate, I would like to talk to you for a very few minutes about what our wonderful house in the federal government has been doing. Yes. First of all, they passed the Born Alive Abortion Bill. Now, what that means, and I'm not going to give you the graphics because you want to eat. That means that when a baby is about to be born, because it's full term, is aborted as it's coming out of its mother in a very cruel way. Some of those babies, believe it or not, survive. And they are usually put in a broom closet or pushed aside to die on their own in pain. And so our government, our wonderful Republican representatives brought this bill forward. Every Republican representative voted for it. Only one Democrat voted for it. All of the other Democrats voted to slaughter those children and not give them the comfort. God, people, when did we become so barbaric? I would tell you this, that if any veterinarian oversaw a female dog or cat giving birth to her babies, and the owner of that dog or cat chose to not have those puppies or kittens, and he chose or she chose to kill them as they're coming out of their mother, every animal activist in this country and in this world, the PETA people, the ASPCA people, and I'm an animal lover, believe me, I'd be right there too, would be on top of that particular veterinarian. He'd probably lose his license, maybe even be put in jail, but we can kill our babies here. Something's very wrong. Also, and this is a good thing, and now I'll give you some good news, our representatives are trying to block Mr. Biden. I refuse to call him president. Have you noticed I'm kind of militant? I guess I am. Anyway, they're blocking or trying to block their 87,000 IRS agents he wants to put in place to go after all of this taxes that the big and wealthy people aren't paying. But they're not going to be the ones they're going after. They're going after you and me and our kids because we're easier to get a hold of and we don't have all of the accountants and the lawyers around us. I know what it's like to fight that IRS. It's easier to just write the check. So if you got 100 here and 50 here and 200 here. They are also putting together representatives looking into China. All of the western land of Nebraska, Kansas, those states where we have so much being grown. They're owning it. Now, the reason they're owning it is because they're having problems feeding their people. Doesn't take a mental giant to know what they're going to do with that produce, is it? So, why am I telling you all this grim stuff? Because I told you last month that we have to get a hold of our people in the government and compliment them and tell them what a great job they're doing. And we are putting together here in your little club, which isn't so little actually, we're very proud of all of you, a legislative committee to keep track of all of this stuff. I have put together a list, and you'll be hearing more about it, of how you can contact every single Republican representative in the House, everyone from every state. And we're going to urge you to call those people from the comfort of your chair and compliment them when they're doing something right and scold them, because they do work for us after all, when they don't do something right. And I have tested this, and if you call after 4 o'clock California time, you get their machine and you just say, "You're wonderful, blah, 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 blah," and you hang up. And it means all the difference. And there is something else we have to do, and you know what it is. We've been doing a lot of it last year, and we're going to do a lot of it continuing this year. And that is, we're going to go to our God and ask for his help, because, oh boy, do we need it. So please bow your heads with me. Dear Lord, you are still in the healing business. Thank goodness you are. And so we're going to ask you, Lord, to heal our country. Oh, Lord, it so needs it. We're also going to ask, Lord, for you to do some special healing of our precious Shirley Morgan, who writes our beautiful newsletters, amazing newsletters. She's right now at physical therapy. She had a fall, and they're putting her back together, and she'll be back with us, and we miss her terribly, just terribly. We also ask, Lord, that you take care of two people that are in hospice right now, and that is Anita Price's husband and also our beloved Phyllis Nielsen. We know they're on the end of their journey. We know you're planning the welcome home party for them. And we just ask, Lord, that you give comfort to them and their families. And finally, Lord, we thank you for the healing that's taking place with our beloved Pamela. She's not here yet. She had a tremendous back surgery in December after Christmas. I think it was before Christmas, but she's doing amazingly well, and I think she'll be with us next month. And we just ask, Lord, that you continue to be with all of us. You know who we are, and you know what we need. And we thank you, Lord, for being our God, and we so thank you for letting us be your people. Amen.
Thank you, Barbara. That was beautiful. Now I have Carol Blanchard, our former president of the club, come up to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Can you believe I forgot that the second month?
Thank you, Pat. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance
It is my great pleasure to introduce one of our own Laguna Woods Republican Club star members. Former council member Peggy Huang was first elected to the Yorba Linda City Council in 2014 and re-elected in 2018. She did not seek re-election in 2020. As a council member, Huang worked in the California State Senate and focused on child welfare, elderly care, welfare, food stamps, and CalFed Bay Delta project, which involved restoring the Bay Delta ecosystem and water storage delivery. Presently, Peggy is a Deputy Attorney General in the Office of the Attorney General, Criminal Appeals, Trial and Writ Section. As a trial attorney, she prosecuted individuals who abused, neglected clients in facilities licensed by the California Department of Social Services. And she represented foster children in juvenile court. She was involved in 2 bills that were signed into law that protected abused and neglected children. Peggy holds a leadership position on a number of boards and agencies, including chair of the Transportation Corridor Agency's Foothill Eastern Board, vice president of the Orange County Mosquito Vector Control, and a regional council of Southern California Association of Governments, and an alternative on the Local Agency Formation Commission. Peggy was one of the named proponents of the Brand Huang Mendoza Tripartisan Local Land Use Initiative, which seeks to make land use a local municipal affair. This initiative is being called Our Neighborhood Voices. I present to you the Honorable Peggy Huang. But first, wait, newsflash, I want to make a special announcement that no one has had yet. We're breaking news here today that Peggy will be starting as the special assistant to our Orange County District Attorney, Todd Spitzer, next week. Peggy.
Thank you, Ro, for that great introduction. I'm going to put this in here. Well, it's not going to work. And thank you, Pat, for inviting me. Because I can't do this and speak at the same time, right?
Yeah, there you go.
And I want to thank you all so much for making my husband and I feel so welcome last month when we joined you in the installation of the board, that my husband that night immediately joined this club and said, this is the home club for me. So he, many years ago, he decided to step away from politics. He was a little bit tired of what was going on with the country, and he said, I need a break from everyone. And, a lot of different clubs wanted him involved, and he said no. So it was a complete surprise to me on the way home. He said, I joined both of us in the Laguna Woods Republican Club. And I said, well, wow, how did they convince you? He said, I was at home. I love the people. So thank you all so much for basically bringing my husband back into politics. So it's a great pleasure for me to talk to you about this important initiative. One of the reasons why I decided not to seek re-election was also because this initiative needed my full-time focus. It required me to raise money, going out to the clubs and talking to a lot of people, including this group, and I couldn't balance anymore. Life was getting a little bit crazy. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this. So how many of you in this room have heard of the Regional Housing Numbers Assessment, otherwise known as RHNA? Okay, that many people, right? And that is the problem is we're not doing a good job educating our constituents about this very important piece of legislation. But how many of you have heard about the fact that we have a 3.3 million deficit in housing? Have you heard of that? 3.3 million, according to the governor? In the state of California. We have 1.2 million in Southern California. Have you heard about that? Yes. Okay. Well, let me just tell you that this group that I'm involved in, which is made up of over 200 locally elected officials in the state of California, we came together, about a dozen of us came together in March of 2020 when we realized that the governor has been lying to us about this housing crisis. We do not have 3.3 million housing shortage. We don't have 1.2 million shortage in California. We fought like hell, and we fought hard. And this is a nonpartisan. I don't even want to call it bipartisan. It's nonpartisan. If you ask me who's, People's Party affiliation in this group, I'll tell you I don't know. I have a guess. Most likely, mostly Democrats, some Republicans. I do know one American independent in there because he told us that. So 200 of us coming together every single Sunday, except for holidays, for 2 hours, 4 to 6, since February of 2020, because we care about the state. We were very concerned about this 3.3 million number. So we got together, we kept pressing, and then we finally got the state audit to do a complete audit, and then shocking news. The HCD, Housing Community Development under the governor's office, miscounted, double counted, triple counted in some circumstances. So we really don't. An independent think tank actually did the numbers for us. It's under 900,000. Wow, that's a huge thing. But after we took that to the governor, they said, what? Yeah, well, that's nice, but 3.3 is my goal. So we are now stuck with that number here in Southern California, 1.2 million. The city of Laguna Woods, you got to assign 997 units. No space here in Laguna Woods for 997 units. This is why this is so important. Because in order to make the 1.3 million or 3.3 million a reality, since 2016, they've been slowly eroding your city council's powers away. All right? RHNA, Regional Housing Needs Assessment, was meant to be a planning tool, planning for housing at different income levels. But the local city council still have the right to talk about where to build it, height restrictions, parking restrictions, setbacks. Can we have ADUs or no ADUs? All those things were left at the hands of your city council members. And Environmental Qualities Act, we want to make sure that there's a noise reduction during construction period. We want to make sure there's no dust flying into your home during the construction period. We want to make sure it's not being built next to some, endangered species or important wildlife habitat or water quality. That falls under CEQA. I know a lot of Republicans hate it, but as someone who had to try to rewrite that bill, CEQA, while Governor Wilson was the governor, it does have some really good components to it. It's just been horrifically abused. So all those things, since 2016, the state legislature has been taking it away, eroding it a little bit. And so we'll talk a little bit more about it. So this very important initiative, let me go to my next slide. The neighborhood initiative is a constitutional amendment. We came together and we decided that, part of this coalition that we built, that the only way we can stop the train wreck in Sacramento is the people have to speak up. And so we decided to come up with this idea of a constitutional amendment which will make local laws prevail over any state law. So when you go to court, right now, if you go to court and there's a conflict between local and state laws, the state will always trump the local laws. And then if you're challenging the federal law, then the federal trumps the state and trumps the local, right? This amendment will say, when it comes to land use and there is a local ordinance about height, you can't build anything past 3 stories, and the state said, no, the sky's the limit. When we challenge that in court, this local ordinance prevails. The reason for that is we believe that one size fits all doesn't work, and your city council members, your community knows what's best for the community. How many of you know what SB 9 is? Yes, great. SB 9 is probably the most horrific piece of legislation eroding local control ever written. It actually came in different renditions over the years. It consumed my life for about 3 years because I have fought the legislature. Our coalition have fought the legislation all the way through, and because of COVID, strictly because of COVID, where we couldn't go to to Sacramento and lobby against it, and the president pro tem, Senator Tony Atkins, said there will be no legislative movement on anything until the housing package is passed, and that's SB 9 and 10. Why is SB 9 so horrible? For those of you who live in single-family homes right now, if you here in Laguna Woods, is that your neighbor can split that lot. You can split that lot. Okay, there's no lot restriction. So like you could be on a 7,000 square foot lot and you can split that lot and build up to 4 to 6 units. All right? And there's 1 parking space per unit, right? So if you have 2 people living in there, I mean, too bad. They're going to be flooding your streets. So what we want to do right now is there's this, because the way initiative work is you kind of have to write it broadly, is that we will not be able to overturn this law. But what we were going to do is give your local government the authority to write a restrictive law, so that when anybody tried to apply SB 9 in the city of Laguna Woods, but the city of Laguna Woods said, no, we will not apply SB 9, then the local initiative will prevail. And this is because there are some cities, we recognize that, even within my coalition, that they liked certain aspects of SB 9. There's always something good, because that was the only way they can get it through, right? Was there's something good in it, which was to bypass a certain amount of CEQA. So builders really, really liked it. So we want to give your city government the choice. So I wanted to spell any, hopes that we will overturn SB 9, but giving back the tools that your city council need. And I'm hoping you keep track of time, so if there, I would have some. Okay. Oh no, it's okay. I just want to make sure I'm good on time, so just let me know. Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Now, who support the initiatives? There are 34 individual cities that have signed on. The city of Yorba Linda has here in Newport Beach, Laguna Beach, Torrance in Northern California. We have Pleasanton. Several other cities. SCAG, the Southern California Association of Government, which represents 191 cities and 6 counties, officially endorsed this initiative. Contract Cities, which represents over 80 cities, primarily in Los Angeles, also endorsed. South Bay Council of Government, which makes up of 16 cities, also in Los Angeles County, has endorsed it. And we have a rising grassroots. It says 25,000, but last time I checked, we're actually closer to 50,000. So we're a movement. If you see how hard it is to build a movement for initiative, we are getting there because really this is what democracy is all about. Because at a time, you all know the governor and the legislature, they're here to take away your rights and to limit local control, which really local government is where the people is connected to their government because you're doing things, you're implementing policies for your community. The state is taking that away, pushing a lot of mandates and giving your local government no money for that mandate. Okay, and building housing without giving your local government the money to build housing or help promote housing is another unfunded state mandate. So we are here all about restoring local democracy, saying that you have a right to have your voice to be heard. So these are the laws that it's really been what I'm talking about bad. It all started with Senate Bill 35. I cannot tell you how many people are Republican friends. And this is where I attack my Republican friends because they fell asleep at the wheels. And when I went back to look at Senate Bill 35, I was shocked how many of our friends on the Republican side voted for SB 35. And they also voted for SB 9, and some of them voted for SB 10. I had a nice heart-to-heart talk with Shannon Grove about that, and she supported SB 9. Do you know why? Well, because I represent Central Valley, and we don't want housing, but it's okay if you guys build in your backyard. Wow, this is what I'm talking about. So when it comes to housing and land use, let me just tell you this. It's not Republican versus a Democrat. It's really about rural versus urban. Those of us who live along the coast, a much more developed area, they want all the housing here. And if you go to the rural area, they said, keep the housing out, all right? So you have very strange bedfellows. SB 1120, which was in 2021, and that's what 9 and 10 was, they realized they couldn't pass such a big package. So in 2021, they split it into, in 2021, they split it into 2 to get it through. But 1120, I can't tell you that we have Republicans. My assemblyman, Philip Chen, voted for SB 1120. So I took it to Twitter and attacked him. So I said, I'm sorry. And he said I was being a bad Republican. And I said, you're being the bad Republican because you took away local control. It's not about building housing. It's about local control and democracy. So to give you a brief idea of what the state has been doing, SB 35 basically said if a housing project has 20% affordable near a transit, it is a by right development, right? And then the third requirement is if the city has not met its RENA numbers. So it went that way. Everybody fell asleep. I fell asleep because by the time I learned about it, it was already moving out of the assembly and toward the governor's office. So I was totally, and that was before I got really involved in this. And so SB 9 came about with ADU splitting the lot and saying, you know what? SB 9, anybody now can go to the city council and said, you have to approve this because I'm splitting my lot, all right? And SB 10 for the city of Yorba Linda and Newport Beach, it became and Costa Mesa, which are cities that have ballot box zoning. So every time we upzone, we have to go to our citizens. It said the majority of the city council can override the local initiative. And that makes it scary because I will tell you, I've already warned my residents in Yorba Linda, builders are going to come in 2024 to make sure they have 3 builder council members, and then they're going to use SB 10. And that's dangerous. AB 2079 just passed in 22. It's effective January 1st. And I had to write down notes about it because it had changed so much that what it does, the ultimate version that was passed was it eliminates parking for homes and commercial properties near transit or in neighborhoods with low car use rates. I can tell you that generally in Laguna Woods, where the majority of the retired individuals drive less, you also are not driving during that, what we call the commute times, right? So that would apply to you. That because you have a lower car rate usage rate, your city council cannot impose parking restrictions. So what does that mean? They can literally build an entire apartment or a condo unit and provide 0 parking. All right? That could happen, and I'm not exaggerating because what do we do as city council members? We always make sure 1.5 or 2 cars per unit, right? And because we don't want cars on the street, it blocks emergency vehicles. It's hard to keep it clean. You have vandalism, so we want to keep cars off the street on somebody's driveway or in their garage. Well, in a community like this, under AB 2079, gone. You can't do it, okay? That is how crazy this is. There is this idea that's been promoted by people like Governor Newsom and our friends in the building industry that said, well, if we build more homes, the prices will go down. You know what? I've looked at charts since the 1960s. That has never happened. What is the number one reason for anyone to reduce their housing prices? Mortgage rates, right? Because when the buyers can't afford the mortgage, the seller is going to lower their rate. And we have seen that. If you looked at Orange County Register last month, Orange County prices dropped 49%. All right? It is not supplied. Trickle-down theory does not work in housing, right? Why? Because we have a lot of real estate investors. If you watch what happened in the past 2 decades, since 2000, we have a lot of shows on how to flip a house. You know, let me show these, have you seen those flyers, little poster boards on the side of the freeway that said, call me and I'll teach you how to flip a house, make quick money? All right, and it's all because we have low interest rate. And so you've got investors with money, access to cheap money. So they buy up these homes and then flip them for a higher price or rent it out, which really price out people who really want to buy a home to achieve their American dreams. It is also not, owning a single family home is not a racist idea. You're gonna hear that. Okay, and it's amazing. Now, we all know back in the 1900s and about 1930s, there was redlining. Yes, that's true. But they said you can't move here, but we're not going to prevent you from being able to borrow money and live over here. So we have a lot of middle-class communities of color throughout the state of California and the nation that these people worked really hard and they built up those middle-class neighborhoods. And they're very proud of it. Now, the sad thing about these bills is it's actually having a huge negative, disparate impact on these communities of color because their land prices tend to be cheaper. So these developers would come in And I'm using Lamar Park as an example because their activist, who is, wow, I mean, on Zoom call, we try not to talk about anything other than housing because we can't be more polar opposite. But she was telling me, like, my neighbor sold a house, market price is $400,000. A developer came in and offered $700,000. Of course. They never seen the money like that. And she was about to retire. She's like, retirement fund. I've been working in the beauty salon all my life and I didn't save anything. And this is nest egg, yay, right? She sold it. Then the hard reality happened to her. She couldn't afford to buy anywhere else in Los Angeles. She couldn't even afford to buy in that same neighborhood because a lot of developers came in. And that's why this individual became so active in her community. She said, look, how do you feel? I'm living in a single-story house, and then next to me is a 4-story apartment building. No privacy, and now with these laws, there'll be no parking requirements. So it's having a huge impact on this, on our communities of color. But if you're going out there and you listen to Governor Newsom and all these housing rights people, they'll say, oh, this is gonna help people of color, this is gonna right the wrong of the past. But if you talk to the Latinos, the blacks, and they'll say, no, actually, this is destroying our community. Because the number one way for any immigrant or people of color to get ahead in this world is what? Homeownership. Homeownership builds wealth. If you want to help somebody, you want to give them a helping hand, it is not going to be a welfare check. Help them get into a home, build that equity. Because when you talk to a lot of the ladies and gents who, during COVID, and they said, oh my goodness, I didn't know what to do, guess what? They used their garage to open up shop during COVID. They tap into a home equity line of credit to get them through those tough times. If you take away that right and their ability, you're only causing more people to become dependent on government. Who pays for the impact? All of us. You see all these things that's listed. You generate more taxes, tax revenue for your city from single-family home ownership, single-family lot, than you do from high density because we tax per parcel. All right, so even though higher density, they get a little bit bump in terms of that calculation for property tax, the usage, the higher usage because of higher density, it's harder for our city to recuperate. But worst part is really the idea of what the impact on your roads, because the higher density brings in the impact on your roads, and it's harder to maintain. And your revenue, you'll see more of your general fund going to roads and public safety than you will see anywhere else. So that is another huge issue. Right now, a group of charter cities, and I've been sworn to secrecy, so I can't tell you who's involved because I was told I can't, but hopefully in a couple of weeks I can, that they have come together and they're suing the state because they feel this is very important. So we'll see how that's going to go. Again, like I said, this is not a party thing. This is really about fighting for our democracy. Let's see. This is too small, I think. Oh, it's good. Okay, it's small for me. So as you can see, we actually did pay for a poll in 2021. And you will see that people overwhelmingly support this initiative, all right? Because when we go back and we talk to people about like home ownership, like everything I spoke to you about, what they want is they do believe in affordable housing. And we all support that. We should have housing at different income levels, and that will meet not just different income levels where people's earnings are, but also different stages of your life, right? And so we need to provide that. We should zone for that. It is the way to take care of our community. But not the way the state is doing it, which is one size fits all. So when we just sent our initiative out, we got overwhelming response to it. And this goes across the board, people of color, immigrants, non-English speakers. It was a very comprehensive poll. And as you can see, regardless of where you live, primarily in the urban area, they're in support of it. I will tell you, it didn't do as well in the agriculture area. But like I said, they would prefer all the housing here along the coast. So I'm just going to skip ahead and and ask all of you to really help out. Our biggest need right now is financial needs. So if you can, any amount, and be a regular donor, we would greatly appreciate it. And one of the good things, we did start this initiative, the signature gathering in 2022, and we weren't able to reach as far, basically because we spent so much time trying to educate people. So we're coming back again in 2024. Back in 2022, we had to get over 1 million signatures. I believe it was like 1.2 million. Well, the good thing about having a low turnout rate is that number is under 1 million this time. So we're even more hopeful with 2022 being a lower turnout rate because it was a non-presidential year. We don't have to get as much, 300,000 less signature, but the fact that it's also presidential year, that means also voter turnout for this initiative. So 2024 is going to be the important year. So we really need your help. It's ourneighborhoodvoices.com if you can donate. And then we are now in the final draft form. And I tell you, when you do something like this, you have strange bedfellows, right? We have housing is a human rights, very left group being supportive of this. Shocking. And then, Howard Jarvis, I don't know if they'll endorse it or not, but at least they are very supportive of the idea. They just haven't come out to endorse it. But you're talking about left and right working together. And you know what? When left and right is working together, it's only a good product. And so the people who don't like it are the people who really have some kind of political or financial gain or loss if this initiative passes. So we really need your help. Please tell your friends and families. It's going to be a huge undertaking. Housing is a human rights. We're the first to write a check to us. And so they're our major donor because they believe in local control. We don't mind not agree on a lot of things, but the fact that they believe in local control is what brought us together. And again, it's going to be up to us to bring the local control back. So with that, do I have time for questions? Oh, okay, great. Yes, great.
Excuse me just a minute. I want to say it's okay for you to serve lunch now. If we have our servers, Linda, Anita, can you go in the kitchen and ask them to start serving, please? Thank you. Sorry, Jim.
The real estate industry, surprisingly, and this is, again, this is very interesting. You speak to the local realtors, they are in support of our initiative. They also believe that local control is the best thing because they know the people they're selling to. All right? They know that the people they sell to or the buyers, they want certain products. But they all want to own a home. They all want space, and they all want parking. So they know that. But the strange thing is the California Realtors Association is against the initiative because from their peace of mind is, from their standpoint is, oh, this is going to hurt the realtors' business. That means less homes to sell. Single family home, that's one house, but if you can sell 5 townhomes, that's more commission. So there's a disconnect between their board and their members. The board just think that if more homes equals commission, and our members must love it, but our members, the realtors, most of them live in our community, They sell in their community because they know the community, and they're saying, no way, I don't like it. So there's that. The builders, the BIA is absolutely behind this because, you know, you can build more home, and they hate CEQA. So the more by right laws they pass, wow, less in my way, right? You heard about the latest initiative making it difficult to raise taxes and fees. I will tell you, as much as I hate taxes and fees, I really don't like that idea coming from local governments. You know, some of the fees we raise is just to recoup cost. We do ask the developers to pay for the cost of sewage connection. We do ask them to pay for the electricals because, you know, you're building this whole entire community and you shouldn't put it on the local government. The fact that we can't raise fees to recoup that cost, some of these crazy bills actually have the developers paying no fees. Right now, currently, the fees are frozen at 2018 level. You all know that cost of services all went up in your community. So if you're putting in new homes, but they're paying 2018 fees, your city is paying for 2023 costs, but they're only getting 2018 money. That's going to cause a lot of deficits in your cities, all right? And you know, many of your Republican city council members are dealing with that issue because they just need to recoup cost, right? So we need to kind of think about that. So this is really sad, but the biggest funders of all these programs is your tech companies. Your tech companies created a lot of jobs, and there are not enough housing, right? So they basically want your city, your government, to build the homes for their residents. And I call that a little, socialism, because if you ever done business in China, this is what my brother told me. He wanted to build a factory, and they said, great, first build 10,000 homes. Okay, I haven't built my factory, but I have to build the homes first. How does that work? Well, they want to make sure there's homes available for the workers. That's essentially what we're seeing here with all these laws. Developers come in, build these homes for these tech workers. And so when you, there's a group called California IMBs, you go and you look at their financials, and it's backed by all the high-tech people. And they're the number one funders. That's a very long answer, but I want to make sure you know that we are dealing with people with agendas, and they're not agendas that's going to help you and I.
I have a question about
Noah?
homeless. And
Homeless. Oh, yes.
yes, in the news, you know what's happening in New York City. That they don't want to even stay in the homes, the hotels. Right before, when the pandemic was starting, they were going to put homeless COVID people in the Ayers Hotel, right in the center of us. We protested, they didn't do it. But I know where they put the people. They found another hotel that didn't have full night thing, and they put the people in there before the election. This is before the 18 election. If they lived there, if the homeless lived there 3 months, they could register. They had an address. They could register. That's where they got a lot of their people to vote for them. Are you looking into that at all, or is somebody looking into that? That we're not like New York City.
Thank you. Noel has a question here, and then we'll go to the gentleman. Okay.
First of all, we don't really have a homeless problem. We have a drug problem. The second thing is, Peggy, can you address how Melrose fits in with these new developments? Because so many developments in California have a Melrose attached to them. They say that that's going to only be a third more of your property taxes, but it really is half. 42 years, and the interest rises.
Right. So this initiative will not do anything with the Melrose because, because we're about land use. Melrose is a tax that's on your property taxes that it's supposed to be used toward your transportation and all those costs. And, that is going to be an interesting discussion, actually, is because if you have all these by right development, and if the initiative passes on the ability for the local government to raise your taxes and fees to recoup the cost of transportation and all those infrastructure costs, you may see people passing those Melrose. You're going to see more and more cities passing that Melrose in some ways in order to recoup the costs. So it's a great question, Noel, that I don't have an answer to. I can just tell you all the different, arguments for it, which really, I think, why these land use bills that have been passing, giving by right and freezing developers' fees, is not a good idea. Even though as Republicans we said, hey, well, I don't want to pay taxes or fees, but when you cannot recuperate costs, something's going to have to give. So it's a great point that you brought up. I can only guess Melrose will be used if we cannot recoup that cost. So sorry. Yes, the gentleman in the back.
I have an observation that where I'm making this from the broad intellectual shoulders of FDR. As you may know, FDR opposed public unions, and as you may also know, public unions control California government. The most egregious, I think, it's kind of a tie between the teachers union and the prison guard union. California had an experiment with the prison guards, that is, with prisoners, that is. Prisoners could get time off if they took courses that were available to them that gave them skills, so once they got out, they could market themselves in a real job. Guess what? It worked. There was a radical reduction in the number of reoffenders. The number of convicts declined precipitously. I think it was like a 25%, or no, to 25%. So in other words, 1/4 of the prison population was the result. Prison guards noticed this. They killed that reform and the end of the reform. So it strikes me this is be a very powerful issue for for candidates of all types to stand on the side of the California people and against the California Prison Guard Union. May I have your comment, please?
Well, first of all, I'm not a candidate, so I don't know how to do that. So I just want to make that clear. I'm not running for any office. But, prison guards, this is my personal opinion, all right? We all want public safety, and that's what they use as a union, all right? You need us because we're your last line of defense. And so that's why they're so powerful. And they're going to ask for anything under the sun. And I can tell you that if you go out there into the community and ask them, this is what the prison guards want, majority of the people will go for it because they're thinking public safety. They don't bring up the questions that you brought up because that's not relevant for them, that's not important to them, because the message is public safety, right? Now, interesting as to going back to this initiative, again, we have a huge disconnect between the union bosses and the union members. We have members of our coalition who are members of the unions. They want local control. They worked hard to earn the money to buy the houses in which they live in. They don't want that taken away. But their union bosses are saying, oh, well, jobs, right? I mean, building houses, jobs. Supply chain, all the way down to, the woodwhackers. I mean, that's jobs. So we're in support of all the Governor Newsom's housing policy because that's jobs. But their members are saying, I don't like where this is going because I worked hard to be in a single family home. I don't want to be in an apartment. I want to be cars off the street so I don't get run over when I'm crossing the street and there's a blind spot. And so this is where people need to rise up. The only way you can combat these unions is really to get the union members to join the initiative, to join your cause, and say to the leadership, you're out of touch. Your policy is hurting me, because sometimes it's not about the jobs. It is about my quality of life. And so we're trying to drive home the message, quality of life matters. Okay, so again, ourneighborhoodvoices.com. Hope you guys can help us out by contributing. And when we're ready to gather signatures, I'll be back and ask for your help to get the signatures. We need this in 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. And we will help you. We are going to be putting our efforts more for the local. So enjoy your lunch, everyone. And if there's any questions that haven't been answered, Peggy will be here till the end of the meeting.